Sports app.
Fox News, I'm Tom Graham. President Trump said the U.S. has reached what he calls a fair trade deal with Canada.
Our farmers are going to be thrilled. Our manufacturers are going to be thrilled. And basically, we have no tariffs going into Canada. Canada was charging us tremendous tariffs.
The president says he spoke with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney after threatening a 50% tariff on billions of dollars worth of imports from our neighbor to the north. A Virginia woman is dead. Carmen Pooch found fatally stabbed just outside Washington in a park. 19-year-old suspect in custody.
Alexis Campos is under arrest. He is being interviewed right now by Fairfax County homicide detectives, and he is offering a full confession.
Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis says the two were in a relationship. Police said Campos was in the U.S. illegally. America is listening to Fox News.
Fluffy, made from scratch biscuits. Hearty ham, sausage and bacon paired with eggs. When you're craving a hearty morning start, head to 801 Raw Bar for an authentic, true country-style breakfast. You'll be greeted by the sound of sizzling bacon, the beauty of fluffy scrambled eggs, and the taste of golden buttermilk biscuits. Cooked fresh and piled high. You don't need deep pockets for a deeply satisfying meal. Get classic Southern breakfast at 801 Raw Bar. Big country flavor, tiny price tag.
Your pet is missing. That sudden panic, the racing questions, the worry of what could happen. It's overwhelming. Petco Love Lost is here to help. This free, non-profit-powered service uses photo matching technology to search the largest national lost and found pet database, including pets from shelters, neighbors, and social media, helping bring pets back to the people who love them. And it works. Every day, Petco Love Lost reunites pets with their families. A reunion happens every 4 minutes. Simply upload a photo of your lost pet or one you found, and Petco Love Lost's photo matching technology goes to work instantly. You can even register your pet in advance, so if the unthinkable happens, reporting them lost and helping bring them home is as easy as the click of a button. Every pet deserves a way home. Visit PetcoLoveLost.org to register your pet or upload a photo and search for a lost or found pet today.
The number 3, one of the most important and powerful numbers on so many levels. And for your wallet, it's powerful at InstantRadioDeals.com. Enter the promo code FIRE at checkout for 33.3% off the list price of select items. Liberty Flames individual game tickets, Liberty Flames season tickets for the upcoming football season, and Hill City Howlers skyboxes and general admission with a $10 food voucher. All through the end of August. 33.3% off the list price of those items when you enter the promo code FIRE at checkout.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app. 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, and asking your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson.
Here we are, one more team after today for our Seminole District High School football previews. That'll be the Jefferson Forest Cavaliers, because tomorrow we are doing kind of a loose test run of JF Cavalier football presented by Troslaw.com. We are still waiting for sponsors. We have some of them that are in the chute, ready to be committed, others that need a little bit more time. And let's be real, tomorrow's a scrimmage for them, but it's also for us just to get a lot of the kinks worked out. So that's going to be the focus for us tomorrow in the fast lane and on our Virginia's Talk Station app, 100.9 FM Lynchburg and 95.3 Bedford. Heritage the focus today. Oh, if there's a coach that understands the elements of gamesmanship, understands the elements of strategizing, and maybe his greatest strength, Brad Bradley of the Heritage Pioneers, it's understanding how to push the right buttons with his team. Well, I get his style is polarizing to the outside. I'll acknowledge it. I do think you need to also say his style works because of where he is. It worked at William Campbell previously, similar in terms of the area. It works at and I don't mean this to be disparaging, but it works at certain schools and not others. Just the nature of it. Tough love, hard, blunt, does some yelling, but it's all in good nature. And to be frank, I think it's with kids that generally their background may be a little bit more rough around the edges. And so they need somebody to show that they love and care about them. And Brad Bradley does that. And so that's where it's fascinating, because on the one hand, you wonder if he cares about people from the outside. On the other hand, I think he knows what he's saying when he says something like this, mentioning people from the outside.
I like this group. You know, a lot of people won't give us a chance because we lost 17, 18 seniors. We lost a lot of starters. But I think these guys are a testament to what this thing is all about. These are guys that have been around. These guys that are not easy to play for. They know that. But at the end of the day, you know, when people from the outside look into our program, they're probably thinking, man, that coach is crazy. But I think these guys from the inside looking out and inside our program, like, they know I care about them. They know we love them. I mean, and that's what it's about.
Brad Bradley, Heritage Pioneers head coach. JJ, it is a tactic that's as old as time. Nobody gives us a chance. But yet, I think when you're talking about a team that's got some strong senior leadership, the Heritage Pioneers do, with Jamari Brown, with Kamondre Fleshman, with Raekwon Rucker, who are all at Seminole District Senior Media Day, and then you have a large majority of your roster that are underclassmen, including a very heavy freshman class. I think it makes sense in that regard. And even with the seniors, let's not kid ourselves, there's an element of these are still high schoolers. And I mean, look, even as an adult, I'll be the first to admit, to get my usher on for a moment here in the fast lane, I'm a 40-year-old man. Or as Mike Gundy would say, I'm a man, I'm 40. I like a little slight here and there. There's a human nature component to it. People not giving us a chance. When you can dangle that out there in camp, I think it's a very powerful thing all the time, but especially the younger your team is.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're a young team, you got to inspire them. You got to find some sort of motivation to really get them to buy into your program. And I think this angle he's taking of no one believes in us is almost the best way you could possibly do that. I mean, the combination of youth with the senior leaders, getting them to buy in by saying that. I mean, what motivates you more than wanting to prove someone wrong at the end of the day? And if no one believes in you, you want to prove everyone wrong. And the best way to do that is to go out there and win football games.
Again, I am of this, personal growth mindset in the sense of doing your best to do your best and to hold yourself to a particular standard. I believe that should be the ultimate driving force, is to be the best version of yourself at whatever it is that you are, and to be that best version where your feet are planted. And it's not bad if you get opportunities to go elsewhere. I'm a religious guy, so just indulge me for a second. But I'm a believer that Christ will open doors, and God will open doors and make things clear. And my faith in Christ gives me a level of confidence. Again, to each his or her own, but just for a quick little nugget on that here in the fast lane. But it doesn't mean that you can't also rely on a level of motivation from the outside. Again, two things can be true. You can be motivated by, number one, it should be your best version of yourself and being the best version of yourself. But sometimes you do need a little extra fire and juice. And sometimes that nobody gives us a chance makes sense. The other thing is, Brad Bradley mentioned that there's the emotional tone. He's an emotive person. Not all coaches are. He is. I'd say I am. I probably mellowed out with age, but I have no problem admitting I'll get emotional in certain ways here in the fast lane and beyond at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. And this part resonates with me, especially in this soft society culture. And by the way, I don't think there's a lot. I think there is not a lot of that in football, because if you have that in football, I think lacrosse is similar in this regard, ice hockey as well. You're just going to get beat up. Like, at some point, you have to realize that there's got to be tough love. But Brad Bradley gets it, gives a lot of it, and it works.
I think what I really like about this group's starting to realize that, hey, tough love equals a lot of love. And, I think what he said is the discipline. What he said was communication. What he said was, kind of what we talk about all the time is everybody has a piece of the puzzle. When you put them all together, that makes a pretty clear picture. When you scramble them out and this person's doing their job, but all of a sudden you're out of the picture and you're not doing your puzzle, you're not fitting your piece, like it's a cloudy picture. And I think this year's group is starting to clean the picture up.
Tough love equals a lot of love. Have you heard this saying before, JJ? You don't worry when I'm yelling at you. You worry when I stop yelling at you or stop talking to you. And I do not believe you have to yell at people all the time. Let's be clear about that. But if you're applying tough love, it means they care about you. I know it's a little old school. I understand that there are a lot of people just in life in general where that ain't their thing. But in a sport like football, if that ain't your thing, there's a good chance winning ain't your thing either. So I like that. It makes sense. It's just generally a heritage philosophy, and as it's been for over a decade under Brad Bradley. But the younger the team, the more it makes even more sense.
Yeah, tough love is an absolute necessity in football, in my opinion, especially with the younger guys. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to harden their shell to an extent. You want them to go out there and have the mental fortitude where nothing really bothers them. And if you're showing them tough love all the time, I think that's going to really benefit them over the long run. I mean, you think about it. Sorry, I just blinked. You think about it. Sorry, go ahead, Ed. I just completely blanked.
If you think about it, this is the nature of that sport. And it's the nature of teaching these people, and especially with freshmen, because you're trying to get them up to speed sooner than later. Now, JF, they've got the weird week 1 bye, which normally would not be something they want, but this year it makes a lot of sense. But they're going to get considerable time. And so when you're going to get considerable time, there's part of it is having a coach that understands that and envisioning a role in a way in which it could be successful, and having the common sense as well to understand that you're going to play freshmen, they better be good enough to contribute.
You know, we're not perfect. We're gonna have some freshmen. They're gonna see some considerable time for the first time in a long time. But I think these guys will tell you, like, pretty good freshmen. I'm excited about them. Like, I'll take them all day long. So, like I said, man, I think at the end of the day, football is about tackling, blocking, you know, and the fundamentals. And I think these guys have worked their butts off since January. Really kind of ramped it up in March and really started having a really good summer. So, you know, we'll find out. You know, you reap what you sow. And right now, I think we've got a lot of hard work and put in this program, and hopefully we get to find out what that's all about.
Part of this also from Brad Bradley goes into entrusting your younger players to be able to guide you through that process. Here's Raekwon Rucker on what he's doing and the wisdom he's trying to impart on freshmen.
Just when, like, they make a bad play or something, just trying to keep them level-headed, stay level-headed, and just keep their head up, go to the next play, just keep working on it.
That's part of it. We heard Jamie Chadwell mention that in the quarterback competition discussion yesterday. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Right there, if you missed it. But it's not just about being level-headed when you have success. It's also when things don't go your way, not totally imploding. Again, to get my usher on, that's one of my weaker points. I beat myself up. I have really had to work on that and learn that. Tennis is my latest example of that, but it's been true in running. It's been true in media. It's been true in sales. A lot of things that I do. You have high standards on yourself. You have to learn and mature to work your way through it. And I have to do it in almost everything that I do. There's always that initial struggle. And then once you start to see success, then you realize how to also have a level head. And again, it's always a work in progress for me. But Kamondre Fleshman added more on the wisdom he's trying to impart on freshmen, including taking advantage of opportunities and being eager for them.
For me, I'll say reps, because if you don't take the reps and you just in the back of the line, you're not going to learn. And also, like I said before, communication on and off the field. If you talk to the freshmen, they just continue to learn.
Those go hand in hand. The more reps you have, the more communication you're likely to be able to impart, because it's natural. I think, again, freshmen in high school, freshmen in college, rookies or second years in the NFL. It takes a moment for some players to for the light to go on at each level. It's harder in college, I think, than any of the other levels because of the transfer portal, at least at some programs more than others. But in high school, college, and the pros, there's always that initial learning curve of getting to that, embracing reps, communicating, being comfortable. I do think communication speaks to your comfort level in terms of if you're comfortable with the assignments, going out and executing them, it then becomes second nature to start communicating, not just telling other people what to do, but just general communication on the field, because you feel confident in what you're doing and feel like you got some stature. I think that's just a natural human instinct. And then Jamari Brown added this on what he's doing as far as the wisdom he's trying to share with freshmen.
Talking to the freshmen about just like what they're supposed to do sometimes, and when they are in a problem, you kind of be the leader in the situation and make sure that they understand what's going on.
It's stepping yourself up as a leader if you're the Heritage Pioneers. And how this can work, playing a lot of freshmen, there are a couple things. One, they got to be good enough to play at the varsity level because it's a step up from 8th grade to JV. And if you don't play JV, you go straight from 8th grade to varsity, you better be talented enough, especially in a district like the Seminole District, or else you'll get eaten alive.
Yeah, hearing the senior leaders talk about how important communication, I think, is going to go a really long way for these freshmen. I mean, at the end of the day, this is going to be a lot of their first time ever playing varsity. They don't really know how it works, the protocol. I mean, they've never done it before. These seniors, they've been there for 4 years. They know what they need to put in to get out what you want to get out. And with Heritage, I mean, I'm really curious how this young team does. It's all about establishing, as I mentioned earlier, that mental fortitude. How are these young guys going to be able to go out, and how big is that talent gap going to be?
Part of this also is, they're freshmen. 2 of the 4 freshmen in the quarterback room are the options. They got 4 quarterback options. 2 of them are freshmen, including maybe the best one, most athletically gifted one out of the bunch. Meaning there's a lot of versatility, but there's also a lot of learning and comfort level difference between getting them on the field and getting the ball in their hands, which you can do at any position, especially if they're good athletes, and then entrusting them with the entire offense.
I think we have a freshman right now, Daryl Alexander, battling for the spot. We have another kid that came over from Glass, AJ Cole, battling for the spot. I think both those young men are great. We went from really having 1 quarterback in the quarterback room to having 4 quarterbacks in the quarterback room. So we're pretty excited about that. I mean, I really enjoy that. But I think it's going to be a good competition right there. We also got a young man named Dash Hubbard. It's been looking good in the preseason. He's also a freshman. I think it's not going to be a whole lot of differences. Flash is coming back. Raekwon going to move over to the offensive side a lot more this year at the running back position and slot.
A lot of versatility in the quarterback room. Dash Hubbard, that's the name that I've heard, is the one to really watch out for. But even Daryl Alexander, I mean, there's a lot of options and explosiveness. It's a question of how soon they catch on, but it gives them versatility. And Kamandre Fleshman highlighted that being one of the key things that's got him excited.
I love the way our offense looks right now. We have people everywhere. I feel like we have filled in all the missing spots, I guess you could say. Our QB situation, I feel like it's good. Some people might not, but I'm pretty sure we're good.
I think there's enough pieces there. It's a matter of figuring it out. One, when you don't have a game in week 1, I actually think you'd rather have a couple of games in an ideal scenario, but even just a couple of scrimmages, you can start to get answers at quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a level of versatility with Heritage in terms of you move guys around, different guys take the snap at quarterback. I think ultimately you want to settle on a guy, but if not, versatility is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, having all those different guys you can plug and play, I'm sure, is a great option for Heritage. At the end of the day, each quarterback, I'm sure, has their own skill set, and that could be appropriate for different games against different opponents. And I also love Brad Bradley specifically calling out Dash Hubbard, a young quarterback, praising him by name. Think of what that's going to do to his confidence in the long run. I mean, hearing his coach go out and put his name out, saying he's a positive, I love that from Brad Bradley. It's all about building these young guys' confidence, and sure, he may be showing a lot of tough love, but right there, you got praise as well. I really like that.
That can go 2 ways. It can inflate somebody's confidence to an excessive level, but this is where I think if you're a Heritage fan, this is just, you trust your coach and trust that he knows his program, his players. Like a lot of the good coaches in the area, they coach at the varsity level, but they are familiar with and involved with JV team, B team, middle school teams. So they're aware of these players and at least an idea of the ways in which you can connect with them to, again, kind of circle back here full circle, some gamesmanship of, motivating your players and keeping the other team guessing, but also focusing on yourself first and foremost, which is knowing how to push the right buttons. Just like if you want to save money from now through the end of the month, all you have to do is push the click button after you enter the promo code FIRE at checkout at InsaneRadioDeals.com and get 33.3% off the list price for Liberty Flames single game or season tickets only at InsaneRadioDeals.com. True or false, by the way, JJ, if you buy those season tickets, we will do our best to make sure you get the same seat and section every single game.
Oh, that's an absolute truth, Ed. I mean, we're going to do everything in our power. And, if you ever need anything or have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us.
Fast Lane Ed Lane on the socials or fastlaneedlane@gmail.com. Speaking of football, fueling up for the season, DJ Diesel to kick off.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
A student pregame concert featuring, I am not making this up, DJ Diesel, a.k.a. Shaquille O'Neal, coming to week 0 in Charlottesville. What are the odds, JJ, that when I'm up there covering that game for the VTRN Sports family of stations and the Virginia Talk Radio Network, that Shaq will be somewhere around and I can at least take a photo of it? I'm not a big selfie or autograph guy, although I would gladly take an interview with DJ Diesel himself. What are the odds that that happens, and what's more likely, that he's probably just going to do the concert and then bounce out of there?
I don't know. I feel like the chances are pretty good. At the end of the day, if you're anywhere near Shaq, you're going to know he's nearby. He's going to stand out in a crowd. And I've seen some of the videos of him doing his DJ things and being at concerts, things like that. It looks like he's just having an absolute ball. He just loves being among the people. I've seen videos of him like throwing water at a rave behind him and things like that. So I think there's a good chance you could get a little interaction, get you a little picture, Ed.
It'd be kind of cool to have that. Meanwhile, we will get to more on the Virginia opener against NC State with Chris Wright of the Saber.com and our Wahoo Wednesday around 5:40 today here in the Fast Lane. But
number 4,
interesting nugget from Jeff Gluck of theathletic.com. He's one of their 2 big motorsports writers, along with Jordan Bianchi. There are different reports out there, but Apple TV is trying to be covert in terms of giving out the viewership for events including the Monaco Grand Prix and the Miami Grand Prix. Some reports say it's down somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 70% compared to last year, which was around 750,000 viewers. The fact that they're being covert about their viewership makes me think there might be some merit to this. Again, I don't have any hard concrete evidence and don't want to pretend to, but I have long thought the whole F1 thing was more of a fad with Drive to Survive. And when people then realize the quality or lack thereof of the racing itself, they'll also start to realize that when you combine that with the more difficult to access Apple TV as opposed to being on the ESPN platforms, and I don't say that because we're an ESPN radio affiliate, I think that would make sense that there's got to be some kind of a viewership drop, even if we can't really confirm these numbers.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised to hear that, Ed. I feel like all the time, whether it be in social media or back when I was at Virginia Tech, there was always people talking about F1. They're excited to wake up on the weekends and in the mornings and watch the races. So Apple not being willing to share their viewership numbers, I think is definitely an indication that it's down. But so I think a fad might be a little bit of a stretch. I don't think F1's going to go away, but it might be on the decline a little bit, Ed.
Speaking of fads,
number 3.
This just adds to our theory that Live Golf might be a fad when you get to the end of this month, because Live Golf has said that this week's tournament in Indianapolis will not only be its last of the season, a source telling Sports Business Journal's Josh Carpenter that players are also still waiting for payment from the last tournament, which was held and concluded on August 9th up in New Jersey. When you're not making payments and your biggest bankroller is no longer present, this is not a good sign for your business solvency.
Yeah, I think we've seen the end of Live Golf, Ed. If there's one thing you absolutely need to do, it's pay the athletes, pay the guys who are bringing the eyes to your sport. And when they lost that Saudi Arabian private investment fund, I don't know if they even have the money to do that anymore. And I am not sure if we'll see any more Live Golf events after this one.
By the way, speaking of interesting events,
number 2.
Evan Hughes was with us yesterday, the new director of broadcasting for the Virginia Tech Hokies. And he mentioned that part of his job is going to be handling a lot of the technical side of making sure things go off smoothly for Virginia Tech football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball broadcasts that you'll be able to hear on your home for the Hokies VTRN Sports app and 93.3 FM. I hope the Cincinnati Open people didn't hear this. If you're not familiar, go home tonight and watch the Cincinnati Open from the Tennis Channel, because you will be hearing the DJ and the announcer and the referee from other courts talking so loudly that it can be heard on the main court. That is how bad the acoustics are at this particular venue. You've got players on your primary court that are trying to play tennis, and you can literally hear the songs rotating in the background. It's comical to me because it's like Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's classic hits. A lot of the great music there, which is great, but if I'm playing in a high-stakes tennis match, I probably don't want that.
Yeah, that's kind of unbelievable. Obviously, I wasn't aware of the situation until now, but I'm not sure how guys are able to keep their focus if the acoustics are that bad, and I can't believe that's something they haven't addressed at this point.
Number 1.
Earlier today, news came out that Nick Kyrgios has been suspended for testing positive for consuming cocaine. Tested positive at a tournament in Mallorca back in June. He's issued a statement taking full responsibility and saying he's stepping away. In theory, I'd want to believe him. But when he has a real pattern of emotional ebbs and flows, erratic behavior, again, going back to my time, maybe associating with what I like to call, quote, street pharmaceutical reps, quote unquote, you might be able to determine that when you have wild emotional swings in your behavior, that might be the sign that this is more of a habitual thing. I don't know if it is or not for Kyrgios. He says it's a one-time mistake. But when you don't have a history of good behavior, that's the old, and I'm trying to impart this lesson on my kids as well. There's the theory of earning the benefit of the doubt. And earning the benefit of the doubt means if normally you do things the right way and you get in trouble for this, people might chalk it up to a one-time mistake and being at a low point. When you have a history of apparently bullying other players on the court, doing the same to the media, having a difficult time treating people with respect, it makes it harder to take Nick Kyrgios seriously. I hope and pray this is a one-time thing. I hope and pray he's getting the treatment he deserves. But there's a reason that people might be skeptical about this.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ed. I mean, it's not only behavior, but now we have a pattern of behavior, and now we have evidence coming out of maybe something that he shouldn't have been doing. I'm really concerned for him. I hope he gets it figured out, but time will tell if he's able to or not.
Meanwhile, time will also tell what we get from Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com. He will join us for some more Seminole District football talk next year in the Fast Lane.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terrybw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
Midday hunger hitting you hard? Swing by Macadoo's for our $8.95 weekday lunch specials. Whether you're craving a classic crunch or something fresh, we've got you covered. Chicken tender basket featuring crispy golden tenders served with fries. The Macadoo's Chef Salad, a healthy, loaded favorite that will hit the spot. Hit back against your lunchtime hunger at Macadoo's with eats that won't break the bank.
It's time to share it and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Macadoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's. Your front row seat to Central Virginia sports starts at the News in Advance. Follow every high school showdown, hear the stories from the area's prep stars, and get exclusive game day reporting on the Liberty Flames. From Friday Night Lights to Division I action, newsadvance.com will always deliver the final scores, in-depth stories, and video highlights that drive our community. Don't miss a single play. Stay connected to the teams you love. Subscribe today at newsadvance.com.
Hey gang, this is Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies. Join me for Foster and Friends, Saturday 9 to 10 a.m. on VTRN Sports 93.3 FM.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
One more thing on the Heritage Pioneers and the value and the volume of interchangeable parts. How much gamesmanship? How much of this is legitimate? Here's Brad Bradley on the fact that there are a lot of interchangeable parts and how that might look for the Pioneers this season.
So I think there are a lot of interchangeable parts. You might see one guy at quarterback and one guy at running back. Next play, you might see the other guy at running back, the other guy at quarterback. So we got some multiple pieces. Plus, you'll probably see Tremeke Hudson a little bit more running back this year, as well as the defensive end. So there's a couple of things that we have. I feel like you'll see a little bit more of a variety of some tight end / our H-back, stuff like that. So we're excited about it. We got enough up front. We feel like coming back, have a chance to be successful there.
Somebody who was there to hear those comments from Brad Bradley at Seminole District Football Media Days, your friend and mine from newsadvance.com. your local sports reporter, Bryson Gordon, with us in the Fast Lane. BG, glad to be speaking with you. How much are you buying of Coach Bradley? How much of that is just gamesmanship to opponents and maybe, yes, to keep his players engaged, knowing that there's probably only going to be one starting quarterback, but there are a lot of athletes at that position who might see the field in other roles?
Yeah, I think it's probably not only a statement to other Seminole District teams, but maybe even to his own quarterback room to, hey, even if whoever the guy is internally that may feel like they're running ahead, keep your eyes, keep your head on a swivel. You may have somebody coming up behind you, or this may not always be your job. So always feel like you're on your P's and Q's in terms of keeping this thing on the rails. And so I think, with Heritage in general, it's going to be weird seeing a new quarterback back there. For as many years as I've been at the News in Advance, all 3 years that I've been covering high school football here, Aiden Slash has been their quarterback, and so things are gonna be a little bit different this year. Covering a new signal caller for them, and kind of just a new era in general. They lose a lot of senior guys, but I think that they're going to be better than a lot of people expect. I don't think they're going anywhere in terms of competing in the top of the Seminole District. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the region, and certainly. You mentioned Trey Meek Hudson there as a running back. He's probably going to be, if not the, one of the 2 or 3 best defensive players in general in the Seminole District. So a lot to be excited about in Pioneer Country this year. And I think it's going to make for, Heritage losing some guys and EC Glass kind of being on the rise a little bit. I think it's going to make for an exciting Jug Bowl, pretty early on in the season.
It will. That's an early game. Heritage has got that unique week 1 bye week, which normally you might not want to have. Brad Bradley seems to be okay with it. I wouldn't say likes it, but is okay with it because of how young the team is. How much of this also is the blend of having enough experienced players back that can lead the freshmen, but maybe being okay turning a lot of the playing time over to younger players and just going and throwing them into the fire?
Yeah, and I think it goes to it speaks a little bit to what he feels about this freshman class. We talked about it at Seminole District Media Day, the freshman class that's important for him. And he said he's going to have quite a few guys that are from that class that are going to be playing in big roles for him pretty quickly. And so not only does it, kind of help those guys to be thrown into the fire and kind of learn from the very beginning about this, but it kind of builds towards what they just had last year. I think last year with all the seniors that they had on their team, it kind of felt like it was a culmination year where everything was kind of building towards last year with that being the senior group. And this year feels kind of like a restart for that. So I think, Brad Bradley is certainly the type of coach that has, forward enough thinking to, see that and know that whatever he invests in this freshman class now is going to pay a lot of dividends down the road. And I think that's why you might even see, he might even start a freshman quarterback for most of the season, if not all the season. And that's not just a play for the future. I think he's got a good quarterback who's one, Daryl Alexander's, one of the guys he spoke about at Seminole District Media Day. And I think he's got an opportunity to be a guy who can maybe be the next Aiden Slash and start there for multiple seasons.
BG, Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com with us here in the Fast Lane. We will get Seminole District previews as far as projections of how things will go next week in the Fast Lane. And of course, look ahead to week 1 action next week, even though Heritage Day are not playing, the rest of the Seminole District will be. So that is all for next week, in case you're wondering about that. But we've been going through our Seminole District high school football previews. A couple of other teams that we have covered but have not discussed with you, BG. You mentioned the EC Glass Hilltoppers as one of those teams right now. Jamar Lovelace, using the fact that they're still trying to get their new field turf installed over at EC Glass, and the fact that they're practicing at City Stadium as a point for addressing adversity. How wise is this? Just leaning into the, hey, we have adversity at the start of camp. We might as well just get used to it because you never know when it's going to pop up.
It's huge for them, and they're going to face adversity right away. I think, facing with the schedule that they have, with what's likely to be an improved Salem team and Patrick Henry Roanoke, and George Washington, who's going to be one of the better teams in Region 4D with Jefferson Forest. They're going to face adversity out of the gates, and so I think throwing these guys into, it may seem minor, having to practice at a different place or rework your schedule for things like that, but it really teaches you to be flexible and to work on your toes when it comes to in any kind of situation. And I think EC Glass is going to face a lot of those kind of things this year, and what feels like it's a big year for them. Going off, making the playoffs last year was nice to extend a streak for them of making that. But I think in general, there's a level of expectation that they need to be back towards the 6-win mark, maybe even closer to 7 wins, if they can win a game at like the Jug Bowl over Heritage. And so for this team in general, winning those close games, they talked about it at Media Day. You can look at their schedule and see a team that could have gone 7-3. You can look at their schedule and see a team that could have gone 3-7. Just kind of how the way things went. They were evenly 5-5 in the regular season, so it kind of broke evenly for them. But I think if they're able to take advantage of those bounces and become that 7-win team, it's going to be because they were able to, overcome adversity, because they were able to face those tough moments this year, like maybe, their lead wilting during the fourth quarter, and they'd be able to stand up to that. And I think, kind of all types of adversity you can go through early in fall camp is going to be great for any team, because as you mentioned, the season's long, and whenever you're in those tough moments, those August days feel so, far away, far removed. But I think in general, those are the days when you build that team chemistry. And I think that's really what EC Glass needs this year. That's kind of what you heard the players talk about as well, was kind of working on keeping their mentality up when the moments got tough.
BG, you referenced the 5-win, 5-loss regular season for the Hilltoppers last year. How much value is there the way they ended that season, winning 3 in the regular season and then giving JF a much tougher fight in that first-round playoff loss over at Sabre Stadium last year?
I think that was huge. I don't think anybody expected them to beat Jefferson Forest in that playoff game. You were there calling a game for JF, but it was still night and day compared to how they looked in the first game. They weren't really competitive in the first game between the two teams, and for them to go into that second game, the scoreboard wasn't really, I think a 30-point loss even in the playoff game, but it felt like EC Glass belonged a little bit more in that game. They were meeting the Cavaliers at the point of attack. It was a lot more of a battle tested team in that second game for EC Glass. And so I think that came from seeing the spark that they got from that 3-game winning streak to end the year. They were 2-5. They had pretty much no chance of making the playoffs, and then they won out and got a little bit of help and found themselves playing in the postseason. That gives any team confidence. And so I think they have to be able to channel that this year. And if they're able to do that, maybe they can pick off 1 or 2 of those non-district games against Salem or GW or even PH and Roanoke. I think if they're able to go 2-1 in that stretch, it really sets them up for what could be a good Seminole District run for them. When you think about how much, as I mentioned, Heritage is losing some guys, so they're in a little bit of a reset period. Jefferson Forest, I think, is going to be one of the top two teams in the district, but I think the gap has gotten a little bit closer between EC Glass and JF this year, based off how much I expect EC Glass to improve. And so maybe they can win 1 or 2 of those games and inch their way back up towards a 6 or 7 win season.
BG, we'll get to JF in a moment. We have not done them in our Seminole District spotlights. That's the one team that we have remaining, and we'll get to them tomorrow. But the other team that we have discussed, but not with you, are the Liberty Minutemen. Scott Jennings, his tone seemed to be one where he's committed for the long haul, but he's trying to build a foundation, which may mean tearing some of this down to the studs, which may mean a rough first season over in Bedford. How much is that an accurate observation that Scott Jennings has the right long-form view for the Liberty Minutemen, but it may not yield wins in the early portion of his tenure in Bedford?
Yeah, I think that's a fair outlook on how he kind of positioned things. I think he understands that they're not only facing like a physical disadvantage in a lot of games, and it's a numbers game for them a lot of times. They're really struggling to field 22 guys that can have that physicality for the entire game and keep that level and keep it up. They can play well in spurts. I think you saw that at times last year when they were playing under Brad Womack. They definitely had spurts where they were playing well, but it was just being able to sustain that. And so I think that comes from being able to build that up, starts from from the very bottom. And so in terms of how far that outlook is, I think that's a longer outlook. Like you mentioned, that's probably a multi-year build. But I think Liberty High in general, I might even be higher than their coaches on them. I think that they might be due for a little bit of a good season this year. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to win 5 games, have a winning record. But I think when you look at who they have to face in the Seminole District, it's a tough lot for them, having to go up against some of these Class 3 and Class 4 teams. But I think that you saw last year, with winning in week 1, getting that monkey off their back and having a little bit more confidence, going against Rustburg and showing really well against them. I think you kind of saw what their future would look like if they were able to have a little bit of a positive momentum going into this season. And I think they have that. Nasir Johnson, we saw him at Media Day. He's probably, I think, pound for pound, you put him in any other situation as Seminole, people look at him as probably one of the best running backs. And so I think he deserves the credit to be one of the top 2 or 3 in the district this year. And then they feel pretty confident in their quarterback situation. Evan Lee kind of emerged last season as the starter for them throughout the middle of the season. And so I think with him having the confidence level, he's got a little bit of time under his belt now, and he's obviously learning a new offense, but leaning on Johnson will be huge for him, being able to go to that run game. And so with Liberty, I think poaching a game in the non-district play, they play William Campbell. I think being able to win a game like that, being able to beat a team like Rustburg, that should be a super competitive game for them. I think those are the ones that are going to matter for this Liberty High team. And they have building blocks. I mean, you look back to where they were at this point last year. They were riding a 37-game losing streak. It was probably, one of the longest in the state of Virginia. And then they go in there and win a couple games last year, and they even get the benefit of a forfeit after. And so they finished with a 3-win season on paper. So it looks a little bit better. But I think what's most important is you look at the overall trajectory. And while it may look like a long-term build from where they were 365 days ago, I think it's night and day. And so the program feels like they're at least, on the right track.
Meanwhile, their Bedford County rival are the Jefferson Forest Cavaliers. People are optimistic on JF. They bring a ton back on the offensive side of the ball. We'll get to the other side, though, defensively. They lose a lot. They lose pieces on all three units, particularly the defensive front, the line, and the linebackers. Is that a concern for you in the short term, or is it more in the long-term concern, just not having the bodies, or more of a short-term concern knowing you've got to replace pieces and the defense might be a little bit rocky in the early portion of the season?
Yeah, I'm a little, tepid. I think we'll see. I'm probably a little bit, higher on Jefferson Forest than I think some people are, because I think last year a lot of people were doubting what they would get out of their offensive line, their new look offensive line, and boy, they answered like every single question and more that you could have asked of that unit. And so going into this year, I think asking a lot of questions of them probably doesn't feel right. I think they proved last year they deserve a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that their guys can step up and step into big roles and continue to perform. And so, as you mentioned with the defense, it's going to be a lot of that. I mean, I was literally, it'll be coming out tomorrow at newsadvance.com, but I was working today on my Jefferson Forest season preview and, going through some of these guys on defense that they lose, right? Slade Kazee, Dax Rowland, Spencer Sloan, Pearson Brooks. I mean, those guys are like all district guys who not only, were great players on the field, but they were great leaders for this team. I think, you could speak to this better than me, but maybe 4 captains also. So like, these are guys that meant a lot to that locker room, and that is losing a lot. But I think I think the ability for them to bounce back speaks a lot to what JT Cruz has developed, kind of not even from a senior class perspective, but from a freshman and sophomore perspective, building up that leadership and that camaraderie in that locker room. I think he's going to be fine from a leadership perspective. And I think when you mentioned what they're returning on offense from a quarterback perspective, a skill position perspective, I think they got to be, certainly right there with Liberty Christian in terms of who's the favorite to win the Seminole this year. And I think if you're doing, teams that could win a state championship from our area, here in Lynchburg, I think it's certainly them. It's certainly, or at least compete for state championship. It's certainly them, and it's probably LCA as well. Varina's the boogeyman hanging around out there, but I think Jefferson Forest deserve the benefit of the doubt to say that they could go up there and compete with them again. They gave them the best game of any Class 4 team last year.
That's where I was going to go with it. We can get to this next week in terms of superlatives. By the way, first of all, Spencer Sloan's the other one I want to mention. He was a senior leader last year that's no longer on the team as well, and had a really good season defensively and offensively. But I think your point about Varina is very well taken. I don't know if there's a Varina type boogeyman in Class 3, whereas in Class 4, you got that school, and they've still got a bunch of guys from this year's coming up team that are ACC caliber, much like last year. So it's just a different team.
It is. But as you mentioned, like, getting to that spot is a big deal, and they gave them a really good game last year. The score, got a little bit away from them, but they gave them one of the better games of any teams that they faced last year. And so you never know, get into a playoff situation, maybe the ball bounces their way early on, and it makes for a close game, and you give them some game pressure, and maybe the quote unquote boogeyman, feels the game pressure, and it gets a little close. So I think in general, Jefferson Forest, in terms of what they'll be facing around here, Seminole District, Region 4D, I think that it feels like they're on a collision course with GW Danville in the postseason once again, and that'll be a great rematch of what Jefferson Forest put it on them last year. Be a great rematch of that, and I think definitely seeing them in the Final Four wouldn't be a shock either.
No, it would not. The insight is not shocking, other than shockingly good at newsadvance.com from BG. BG, thank you for your time. Next week we're gonna have to make predictions, so get ready.
I'm not a big prediction guy, but I'll come ready with them.
Awesome. We don't hold them to you. Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com here in the Fast Lane. When we return, Wahoo Wednesday, Chris Wright of thesaber.com slated to step into the Fast Lane next.
Back to school means new opportunities, and smart banking should be part of the plan. At Farmers Bank, our student and young adult accounts are simple, convenient, and built for busy lifestyles. They're easy for growing adults to understand and operate, so they learn the basics of banking. And it's easy for parents to manage and access too. Manage money, build confidence, and stay on track all year long. Visit a Farmers Bank branch, including our Timberlake Road location, to open an account today and start the school year financially prepared.
Some places play football. Virginia Tech lives it. In Blacksburg, maroon and orange combine to belt an anthem heard across the mountains.
Fireworks light up the evening sky in Blacksburg.
And on warm autumn nights, the earth will shake beneath your feet.
It's a miracle in Blacksburg. Hiron did it, Mikey. Hiron did it.
One stadium, one tradition, one unforgettable experience. Virginia Tech football tickets are on sale now. Visit Hokiesports.com. We'll see y'all in the fall.
The number 3, one of the most important and powerful numbers on so many levels. And for your wallet, it's powerful at InstantRadioDeals.com. Enter the promo code FIRE at checkout for 33.3% off the list price of select items. Liberty Flames individual game tickets, Liberty Flames season tickets for the upcoming football season, and Hill City Howlers skyboxes and general admission with a $10 food voucher. All through the end of August. 33.3% off the list price of those items when you enter the promo code FIRE at checkout.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So it's a Wahoo Wednesday as we welcome you back into the fast lane and look at the Virginia Cavaliers. We will get to the basketball nugget in a moment, but football is the first thing on the brain because we're getting closer. And it's interesting. We've spent a lot of time touching on the JMU Dukes, the Liberty Flames, and to a lesser extent, the ODU Monarchs, because they're the group of 5, group of 6 programs, and all of them are kind of in that typical group of 6 limbo of quarterback competitions. Whereas at the power programs, either you've got a guy that you basically, let's be real here, you paid to keep around, or you brought somebody in, but the finances of the way you operate indicate who that guy is likely to be. And some programs, they're dragging it out. Virginia Tech doing that. No official word on Ethan Gruckmeyer, but everybody is just, I think, understandably and justifiably presuming that he's going to be the guy there. Virginia, they took care of it early. At the ACC football kickoff, Tony Elliott mentioned it to us in the fast lane, and he mentioned it to others that Bo Pribula is going to be the guy. So it begs the question of our Wahoo Wednesday guest, Chris Wright of thesaber.com. Chris, is it a little awkward for you covering camp and maybe having a little bit more of an exhale, knowing that one of the most important questions around any camp has largely been answered for the Hoos?
Well, I like it this way much better because you can start focusing on what the rest of it may look like. Now, I think controversy on quarterback is good for clicks, though.
Yes, it is.
From a
Yes, it
business
is.
standpoint, maybe a competition would be better, but I think from a football perspective, it's good to know who your guy is and kind of to work around that. And they obviously have a backup that's really experienced in Eli Holstein from Pittsburgh. So, you know, like they could go that direction if anything goes wrong, but I think it was fine to roll with who they thought the guy was as soon as possible.
Yeah, you bring up the fact that you kind of have an idea, you see things going forward. How much of it is finance dictated? You'd presume that Bo Pribula got a little bit more money because he's a little bit more proven and there was a little bit more of a market and competition for him. How much of it is also the fact that if you go after a guy, you do so vetting him and therefore believing that he's got a real potential and chance to assert himself pretty early in the offseason?
I think in Virginia's case, they have a growing scouting department that works on this all the time. And we're going to have an article up on the site in the next few days about that specifically. But they put a lot of effort into identifying guys that they think can come in and contribute, whether that's quarterback or otherwise, immediately. They don't want to just go to the transfer portal and fish and hope you catch something on the line that works, right? They want to target very specifically. And everybody's trying to do that. But Virginia, I think, has carved out a system that works for them, or at least it did last year. So this is sort of the test case this year to see if it works again. But in Pribula's case, Justin Sparrows, the GM, had happened to watch him play in Oklahoma last year, had no idea he was going to be in the portal, just was watching the game and really liked what the kid showed in terms of kind of toughness and grit. He was coming back from an injury and how he was leading his team, just how he carried himself. So that was before they decided to go look for him in the portal. So in this particular case, that's something they spotted early just as a fan. And then kind of pursued him once that opportunity came up.
Chris Wright of thesaber.com is with us on a Wahoo Wednesday here in the Fast Lane. They got the Who's On podcast with his colleague Preston Willett. We're at Fastlane Ed Lane on our socials and podcast platforms to link up with us. You mentioned the Justin Sparrows comments. he met with the media at the start of camp back at the end of July, which seems like an eternity ago now, Chris. And the one thing I'm kicking myself, and maybe you got more insight that's coming in your article in the process of obtaining Bo Pribula and how the front office works. Did Virginia maybe get even more confirmation in prepping for Mizzou in the bowl game? I know Pribula did not play, but seeing him on film and maybe having a greater understanding of his skills and how he could fit with the offense.
It's not something I asked about specifically, but you would think it at least was something that the defensive folks were seeing. That would be tough if he's playing, and no one expected him to play at that point. So maybe they were sort of ignoring it too. And plus the whole Chandler Morris thing was still hanging around back then in terms of would he get an injunction to participate another year. So there was a lot of moving pieces back in December. So I'm sure they noticed it on film. I don't know how focused they were on it given everything else that was going on.
We touched on this as well, though. Elaborate if you would. I was fascinated by all the people and the media availability that we've had in the offseason with Virginia coaches and players and staff members. Justin Spiro seems to have been the most fascinating one and captivating one for us here in the Fast Lane. What about for you? Have you gained a lot more insight from his availability and studying what he's done with roster construction to have a better understanding for what Virginia is trying to do in the new era of college football?
I think if you look at it closely, they are, turning over stones everywhere because they brought in lower level guys, Ivy League guys, and they've done that regularly. Even back before this became so normal, they were pulling in a couple of Ivy League graduates. Think about Tyler Neville, the tight end that had a really good year here, coming in from an Ivy school. So they've been doing this a little bit for a while. I think the difference is how much it's ramped up. I think he told us they added 4 more scouts in the last calendar year to deal with this sort of stuff. So it's just a growing part of what you have to do as a power, football conference. And, they brought in the NFL side too, where they were, polling NFL people and picking their brains and figuring out exactly how does a professional model work, so that you maximize your dollar, right? Virginia is not the SEC. So Virginia has money. They're not poor by any stretch of the imagination. They do have a lot of supporters, but they're not the SEC where money is just flowing, with no end. There is no end in the SEC, it seems like. So they have to moneyball it a little bit. And I think that's the part that's interesting is, yes, they'll spend when they need to, but where can they find the guys that fit that budget that can also produce? And that's what the scouting department is really focused on, I think.
When you mention the money ball, how much of that goes into the fact that they took a number of Ivy League or kind of Ivy League type transfers, which you would presume may not have the same price tag, but also would fit the fact that this program with Tony Elliott and Carla Williams and Justin Spiros leading the various directions still wants to be, they're doing the NIL thing, but also one where they're not shortchanging the academics.
I think Ivy League graduate students that transfer over fit really, really well, right? Because they've already got a degree. They know the grind of doing that at a really high academic institution. So they can come in and do the graduate student route that is not quite as demanding, even as a undergrad would be at UVA or undergrad certainly at an Ivy. So those folks are able to come in and figure it out quickly. And Coach Elliott talked about that this week, just how quickly those guys can kind of acclimate themselves to what Virginia demands, as you said, in terms of, yes, you do have to go to class. So, targeting people like that is really important in terms of the overall model that Coach Elliott is trying to achieve.
Chris Wright with us on a Wahoo Wednesday. He's from thesaber.com and generous enough to give us a little bit of time. Back to your comments a moment ago about how having settled quarterback battles at a place like Virginia, where it's going to be barring injury, Bo Pribula 1, Eli Holstein 2, how that shapes the rest of the offense. You had an article last week about the wide receiver room still being unsettled for the Virginia Cavaliers. Is that an overstated concern because they would prefer to rely on the running game, or is that a reasonable concern given it doesn't seem like they've had even 1 or 2 guys that have asserted themselves as the top pass catching options at that unit?
So I think the fact that they're going to rely on this offensive line, they're going to run the football a lot, that the running game is going to determine sort of the floor of the ceiling, like where's the bottom number of wins you can get. I think the receivers in the passing game is going to determine how much more they can win beyond that. So I think it's important just because of that. If the ceiling is lower because none of the receivers really emerge, that makes last year's run to a title game or on the fringe of the playoff conversation. None of that is possible if you don't have at least some sort of respectable passing game. I don't care how good you are at running the football. So I think it's really important. I can't quite figure out if they're just being coy with all of this receiver stuff. Well, are they holding their cards close to the vest for NC State, or is there actually not a lot of separation? I can't quite tell what we're playing with in terms of at the card table here, but they certainly have some guys who have caught some touchdowns at other places that transferred in. So if those guys can do what a Terrell Harris did before or someone like that and just make a few touchdown catches, I think that might be enough to move that ceiling upward a little bit.
Chris Wright of thesaber.com is with us here in the Fast Lane. You guys have a great article up about Michaelan Thomas and his new opportunity among the experienced offensive line at Virginia. The other side of that pass catching equation is the running game, and in particular, the offensive line. How much is there an exhale that if you're unsettled at receiver, it can be mitigated by they know who QB1 is, and even though they lost Terry Heffernan, the O-line coach, they bring back a large majority of pieces and a good amount of depth too.
Yeah, no, I think if you're set up front, and yes, these guys have to play together. The projected starting five have not played together yet because of injuries last year. But at least those five have all played a lot of football individually, so you would assume they could figure out the chemistry part. And that's a great place to start. I don't care which team you are, which conference you're in, which level of football. If your offensive line is stable and looks like it can get the job done, that answers a lot of questions around it. So they're definitely going to be following those guys a lot, while the receivers and Pribula and everything else kind of tries to find its groove at a new school for a lot of the guys that are projected to play.
When we touched on projections and playing, Cam Robinson, he's, quote, on track, end quote, to return for the opener next Saturday against NC State. By on track, do you believe that means full participant, or is that more likely to be he's on a pitch count where maybe they fully unleash him, but they're willing to hold him back for fewer reps if necessary?
I think they're still in the process of figuring that out, to be honest. Like, he's progressed the way he's supposed to. ACL injuries are not what they used to be, right? So this was last November. This is a really long time. A lot of athletes make it back on this timetable. So, I think he should be on schedule to play. They have not put him in full contact yet, and that's coming in the next week to 10 days leading up to the game, where they'll put him in full contact situations a couple times, and then they'll know for sure whether everything is ready to go. And the mental part, is he confident doing it, right? So even if he's medically cleared, is he mentally confident in moving the way he needs to move in full contact drills? And that's something they'll figure out. But I expect him to play. I've expected that since the surgery went well, and you started seeing social media where he was, lifting weights and stuff. You're like, yeah, I think he'll be back by the time the opener gets here.
Chris Wright of thesaber.com. He's with us on a Wahoo Wednesday here in the Fast Lane. Thesaber.com and, of course, the Who's On podcast with his colleague Preston Willard for their preview and stacking up Virginia amongst the rest of the ACC. That is their most recent pod. As we connect with Chris right now, they'll have more coming in the next few days. Chris, pivoting over to basketball. Look, I'll be the first to admit there are times where, I think it would be beneficial for Carla Williams to be more out front, but when she does something right, you got to tip her cap. And Ryan Odom's contract extension after a year and getting raises for his staff seemed to be the obvious, this was the right call. How much is this the right call for the Virginia Cavaliers to be proactive in getting things done with Ryan Odom and continuing to show a level of commitment that they can then transfer over to building this program?
I definitely think it's the right move. Now, it only extended it by a year in terms of Coach Odom himself. The interesting part of that timetable, though, is remember the ACC and the fallout of the Clemson and Florida State and all of that. Teams could leave the conference somewhere around that 2030 to 2032 range instead of 2036 because of how the grant of rights and the bouts and all that and the stuff that we don't want to talk about, how all of that changed lines up around the time that this contract would have expired. And so you bump it back a year, it gives you more wiggle room within that window. But beyond that, Coach Odom is a great fit. They prove they can win. They prove they can navigate this NIL sort of whatever, where you're roster building or adding pieces or retaining pieces. Everything he did in that first 15 to 18 months, he's hit right on the top, right? Exactly where you would want him to be. And then he loves the school. So yeah, get him locked up, pay his staff, and try to buckle up and get some consistency in the coaching staff while a lot of other stuff is changing around it.
And consistency. It's good at thesaber.com. Consistently good content. Chris Wright joining us here on a Wahoo Wednesday here in the Fast Lane. Chris, great for grateful to you for your time. We're glad to chat today and look forward to more of these with you and your colleagues, including Preston Willett of the Who's On podcast, which we'll also be listening for.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and shout out to all the Who's in the Lynchburg area.
Indeed. Chris Wright, TheSaber.com, to wrap up our chat today on a Wahoo Wednesday. If you missed that or anything else, Fastlane, Headlane, however you listen to podcasts, and on our social platforms as well. Thanks for listening to The Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVG.